You mentioned the computer systems in state government. We have what they call NPAs here in Burlington. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
Neighborhood Planning Assemblies.
I've been to them. They're great.
Yes. I've been on the steering committee of the NPA in Ward 3, where I live. And last year I proposed a resolution that we should, the city government should make use of free open source software. It's called FOSS. It goes with the Linux operating system, but it's also available for some Windows operating systems. And that a lot of money could be saved in city government. And the city didn't make use of that, but then David Zuckerman sponsored a bill in the legislature, and I believe it was passed that the state would use open source software. Do you see that as a means for saving taxpayer money?
Absolutely. And we've put the state on trying to move to open source, and they are actually making an effort to do that in fairness to state government. The problem we have with state government right now when it comes to computer technology is that there is no one who's looking at the holistic system. You have it divided between too many departments, too many agencies, and there is never going to be, under the current design, one system that delivers services, and we've got to move to that sooner rather than later.
What about progressive taxation? Before Reagan became president, the maximum federal rate was about 80%, but now it's down to less than half that. Couldn't the Vermont income tax be made more progressive so that rich Vermonters could pay their fair share? I know you talked about taxation and people moving out. Is it really? Are we really at the maximum on the for the wealthy?
I personally believe, who knows what the maximum is. You never know. We're talking about nuances, but we have the most progressive income tax in the country, Vermont, and we're proud of that. I've helped build that system. I guess it's been no secret that Vermont has an extraordinarily progressive tax system. We should be proud of that. The problem isn't Vermont's tax system, it's the federal system. The federal system has moved, just in the last few years, when President Clinton was president, the top marginal tax rate in Vermont, in America, was 39% on your federal return. Bush dropped that down to 32. What's even more striking is that they moved the capital gain, which really helps only wealthy people, it's sale of stocks and bonds and securities, from 28% to 15% if your accountant is asleep and 10% if your accountant is awake. I mean, that's an extraordinary decrease for wealthy people. So the capital gains tax on the federal level now literally is 10% if you're smart and 15% if you're sleeping. That's unbelievable. So in my judgment, we need to focus on convincing Congress to have the courage to ask wealthy Americans to pay a little more, as they have historically. Historically speaking, wealthy Americans have never had a lower tax rate in American history than they have right now, except for when there was no income tax in America. It's outrageous. We've got these extraordinary budgets. Meanwhile, the middle class taxes are higher than they've been, and low-income people are paying a fair share. Wealthy Americans are walking away with the loot on the federal tax code. So my emphasis would be on trying to correct that injustice. I do think, wealthiest Vermonters pay 10% at the top right now. And Shap and I made that a little stronger by getting rid of the loophole where you can deduct your Vermont tax from your Vermont tax. We got rid of the exclusion on the 40% capital gains exclusion for the sale of stocks and bonds last year. So I don't think you can get too much more progressive before people start to say, hey, this is a hindrance to our paying taxes here. And the reason that's a real problem, I know some of my progressive friends think I'm crazy, but we have an aging population in Vermont. We're growing older. We're losing our young people. That's one of the things I intend to change as governor, by having good paying jobs for young people like my daughters, so that when they finish school they'll grow their businesses and have their jobs here in Vermont, have their children here. But having said that, one thing about old people is that their income is much more portable. They've retired, they don't need to go to work every day, and they can buy a like my in-laws have, a $28,000 place in Florida and claim that they live there 6 months a year. Now, my in-laws still pay income taxes in Vermont, but they don't have any money. But wealthier Vermonters often become Floridians, and that's a problem for us. The point is, how do we get as much as we can without losing them?
You mentioned the period before income taxes were instituted. I think that was 1912, somewhere around there. And that was the period of the robber barons.
Right.
So that's where we're back to now, back to the robber barons.
We don't seem to be far from it.
What has happened with the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund, and how did it become insolvent?
It became insolvent because businesses weren't asked to increase their contribution for almost 30 years, and I think everybody was sleeping on the job. We went in, the Speaker, myself, and the Governor, and put together a bipartisan proposal that basically makes the fund solvent again by 2016, 2015. And it's a bill that nobody will like. Everyone's going to pay a little more. We raised the cap from $12,000 per employee to $16,000 over a couple of years. We made some tough choices, but the result will be that Vermont will have a balanced, healthy unemployment insurance fund, while the other states will be borrowing money from the federal government or wherever they can find it to balance theirs. So we did the fiscally conservative and the right thing, and we made some tough choices.
Well, what happens between now and 2016? Unemployed people, do they continue to get benefits?
Yes. We didn't change the benefit level. The Speaker and I refused to do that. But we also don't raise it for a number of years, so in effect that is a cut. So everybody is going to feel some pain.
So if we have inflation,
they're going to hurt.
It'll hurt.
Yeah. But it's extraordinary that we got in this position, and it's too bad. We fixed it, and we can get it back on track as soon as the fund is solvent.